Hey, welcome to Your Liberation Library, where we dive into media that addresses issues in faith, freedom, and heritage. I'm one of your hosts, Ishmael Wade, and I have here hosting with me Carl McRoy, also known as Pastor Mac.
All right, let's get into it.
Welcome to Your
Reforging
Liberation
the
Library.
White Republic,
Dive
Race, Religion, and America.
And
Ishmael Wade here with. Hey, welcome back to Your Liberation Library. And today we have none other than our very own Carl McRoy, also known as Pastor Mac. And
you just love saying that too much, man.
I love it. I love it. You should have never told me.
but that's how we got hooked up in South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
It was Pastor Mac.
Yeah, always known as Pastor Mac. And so the book that we're going to be reviewing today is Bonhoeffer, Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Black Jesus, Harlem Renaissance Theology and an Ethic of Resistance by Dr. Reggie L. Williams. So, Doc, tell us, who exactly, for our listeners and viewers who may not know, who is Dietrich Bonhoeffer and what's behind the phrase of the title, Black Jesus?
All right. So, first of all, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, I'm going to hold up this video here, Bonhoeffer, Agent of Grace. It's a pretty good DVD. It's not a documentary. It's actually a movie about the life of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Particularly the resistance part of his life. Yeah. So he was a 20th century theologian. I mean, I think he had 2 doctorates. I mean, he had 2 dissertations prior to coming to America and going to Union College in New York. All right. So he was very accomplished. He's best known for a book called The Cost of Discipleship. He also has, which I left in my other library, but he has this weighty volume on ethics, ethics by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Cost of Discipleship by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Cost of Discipleship was one of the required texts that I had in school.
It's known as a classic, Christian classic.
It's a Christian classic. It's known for its weighty theology and all that. But one of the funny things is that the Cost of Discipleship kind of came from a cauldron that was boiling up in his life, which was kind of getting tired of, this abstract type of theology that was going on, and he was wanting to make theology concrete. All right, how does
everyday life? Yeah.
Right, how does theology affect the way we live as Christians? How does it affect what the church does as an organization? And these became very real questions for him because he's living in the era of Nazi Germany. And I mean, he was a little boy during the First World War. He had family members that were in the First World War. He experienced how after the end of that, Germany became they were labeled as the cause of the war. They were solely to be blamed for the war, and that's the way the treaties were written, and that's the treatment that they got from the other nations. And so there was that helped to set the stage for somebody like a Hitler to come along and build up this nationalism because it's us against the world. Everyone's against us. And Bonhoeffer himself, in his earlier writings, had this nationalism, this, I don't know that they were using the term yet, but blood and soil type of thinking. That the German people were like the epitome of God's work in human history.
Gotcha. So earlier on, as a very gifted, genius, scholar, theologian, in his early years, that growing nationalistic mindset in Germany kind of shaped him.
Yes, as it shaped most theologians and pastors of the day. When he came to America, he spent a year going to school here, and one of the things that led to him, you mentioned him being a genius, which he was. I mean, he's working on dissertations and all kinds of stuff, and he's very accomplished academically, but he's too young to be ordained. So they're like, hey, why don't you go see the world? Let's go study abroad, go check out this place in America is what they finally agreed on. And so when he goes to school in New York, he ends up really getting involved in church life for perhaps the first time in his life in a deep way, just the function of local church at Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem.
The well-known historic Abyssinian Baptist Church.
Yes, well-known, historic, and the pastor of the day is Adam Clayton Powell Sr. All right, some with little more background in civil rights may know Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who was a longtime congressman representing that part of New York City. All right. Well, it was his father that was preaching at the time. When you look at pictures of him, I mean, he doesn't look like the typical Harlem. All right. Yeah. You look at him, you're wondering, why didn't he just try to live life white or something? I mean, well, some people say that about me. But I mean, even more. I mean, he had like straight hair. He's very light complected, straight nose, pretty much. And but he had that black church in Harlem very active in the community. When Bonhoeffer goes there, this is like Depression era, and so the church is very socially active, helping the poor, helping the dispossessed, helping the new refugees, black refugees from the South, right?
Gotcha.
We talk about the Great Migration. Yes. What we really need to recognize is that this was a refugee crisis.
Yes.
They're fleeing white terrorism in the South.
Exactly.
Coming up north. All right. And so a lot of them landing there in New York and having to restart life. And so one of the pastor's jobs that he took upon himself was to make sure that his congregation gave warm fellowship to those newcomers.
Yes.
But Bonhoeffer really got into the whole thing. He got into the social activism. He got into the gospel music.
Wow.
In Bonhoeffer's Black Jesus, Reggie William writes about how when Bonhoeffer went back to Germany and he's teaching, and he would take his he would play his gospel music records for his students.
Yeah.
And so they all learned to get an appreciation for black spirituals and so forth.
Yeah, so what you're sharing is that you have this young man, of course, very brilliant.
Yeah, he's like early 20s.
Yeah, early 20s, theologian, doing great things scholastically and academically. And of course, he comes from Germany. 1930s, the rise of Nazism in Germany, that nationalistic fervor. And then he goes abroad, study at, I believe, Union Theological Seminary in New York. And instead of going to a Lutheran church, which most Germans at that time were Lutheran, instead of going to a Lutheran church with other, white, with other whites or white Americans.
And he was Lutheran background.
Yeah, Lutheran background. He ends up going to a black Baptist church in Harlem.
Right.
During the Harlem Renaissance period.
There you go.
So that had a huge impact. And what you're saying, it caused a shift.
So the art, the poetry, the music, all of that, he was just soaking it up.
Wow.
And what's funny is, okay, so in his first semester there,
Mhm.
he's writing back to his folk in Germany saying, there's really nothing to learn theologically from these Americans. But as he gets into the church life at Abyssinian, he's writing and saying, communicating what is almost like a conversion experience. All right, he's feeling like a revival of his own spiritual, his own spiritual life, and he did travel a bit while he came to America, and he went to some different places. He saw the underbelly of racism.
The race, yeah.
He saw the
chains.
racism, yeah, and he was witness to the apartheid in America.
Yeah.
He and when he went back to Germany, he saw how what they were doing to the Jews was this is what I was seeing in America being done to black people. But he had been doing Bible studies for black women. He was working with children program for black children in Harlem. And so he was developing something in him that never would have happened in Germany.
Wow.
And he's bringing those kind of social-oriented ministries with him when he goes to Germany.
Gotcha.
And he's seeing the ugliness of the racism in America at work in Germany. But instead of being aimed at black people, it's being aimed
Jewish people.
at Jewish people.
Yeah, and it's interesting because at that time, Germany, as a country, it starts to partner with the churches or work through the churches and the religious power, the Lutheran Church, and even I believe the Catholic Church, in supporting some of this horrific, inhumane, policies and acts that were done. But he was a part of a group of believers, the Confessing Church,
Right.
that resisted
Right.
against that.
Right.
Got you.
And now this is one of the things that makes a lot of people conflicted over Bonhoeffer and try to figure out what was he really, what was his ideology, because Bonhoeffer seemed to be, for the most part, a pacifist. However, he was supportive of the armed resistance against Nazism and the assassination plots against Hitler and the
It was active.
right
in one
he
of
was
the
active,
assassination plots.
and he comes in, there's like a crisis moment when he's in the movie where he's asked to do a prayer of blessing for those that are going to be going to try to do this assassination attempt, and he's like, okay, how can I pray for someone that's about to do an assassination? But it was really larger than that. What they were trying to do was perform a coup, get the Nazi thing out, get a normal regime in there. And he was one of the first theologians to recognize that Christianity is going the wrong direction in our country and is complicit in this, and I need to call attention to it.
Yeah, and what is so powerful, and what the book addresses, is the fact that it was his experience in the Abyssinian Baptist Church, being in Black Harlem during the Renaissance, his interactions where it kind of like shifted something in him to where if he never had that experience and just lived in Germany, continued being a good academic, excelling, Lutheran priest, he probably would have been hand in hand with Nazism. But because of his experience and seeing that, being a Christian not only deals with, the depths of theological, exercise, intellectual exercises, and being able to understand and break down doctrine, but to actually to act out the love of Christ.
Right. And so that's, like the theme of his cost of discipleship is, all right, it's not just about believing something about Jesus.
Yeah.
It's taking him at his word. When he gives the call to the disciples who are out there fishing, and he says, "Come and follow me." They can't just sit up there in the boat and say, "Yes, we believe in you." You know, some mental type of confession of belief in Jesus. They need to get out of the boat and follow him.
Yeah. So if you're truly a follower of Christ, you will be doing something. You will be active. You will be involved in things that will make the lives of people better.
Right.
Even if it means speaking out against the government, because you recognize that what is taking place is against the ideals and the teachings of Christ.
And so now he wasn't alone in that kind of ideological thing. I mean, there were others. Karl Barth was one of the theologians that, you know, he wasn't with that program, but it was more from a angle of doctrinal corruption. All right. But so some of their conversations that the German theologians were having of that time that weren't with the Nazi program, it was more of an in-house thing and how this is damaging to Christianity, which, yes, it was. However, Bonhoeffer was like, no, Jesus cares about the people who don't even profess him. That you know, he cares about these Jewish people that are being oppressed, who don't express faith in him, but he cares about them.
Yeah, and I think
that is the kind of thing that he gets from being with an oppressed people in America, seeing the ugly side of what a nationalistic Christianity does to others, and how unchristlike it is, and how a call to Christ, a call to discipleship needs to be followed up with concrete acts of faith.
Yeah, it's interesting because Tisby, in his book Color of Compromise, he mentions that one of the ways that the American church, American Christianity, has been complicit in perpetuating and benefiting from racism is because, you know, it has this duplicity or duality of, yes, everyone is equal spiritually, but everyone is not equal economically and politically, which means that yes, you'll say, yeah, we should help the poor, that's the good Christian thing to do, but you will support policies that disenfranchise the poor and actually, you know, say that it's good politically, but on Sunday, or for some of us Sabbath, you're saying something different. And there's a quote here from Bonhoeffer, or from the book, that says the church is the church only when it's there for others.
Yeah, that is one of the most powerful, concentrated things there. The church is there only, the church is the church. It's only truly being the church when it's there for others. And, you know, it's like one of the common things that pastors would challenge their congregations with. If your church closed next week, would anyone notice? You know, have you been active in the lives of others? Have you been caring for others? And if you haven't, then you haven't been truly being the church according to Bonhoeffer. You asked a question about the title, Bonhoeffer's Black Jesus. And so I was watching a segment with Dr. Reggie Williams, and he was talking about the title of it, and how that wasn't his title in the beginning. That was the publishers that came up with the title, and the title had to grow on him. He wasn't sure about the title himself. He had to think about that and mull it over. But he was thinking something. He said more like maybe Black Bonhoeffer or something. But the idea of Bonhoeffer's Black Jesus is that there's a different kind of Jesus that is expressed through the worship and the social action and the depiction of Jesus and what he cares about, what it means to be a follower of Jesus. This is a different perception that he got when going to the Black church than he had ever been exposed to before. So whether or not, did Bonhoeffer make an argument that Jesus was black? I don't think we're going to find anything that explicitly states that. But we're talking about a Jesus who identifies with the
Yes.
oppressed,
Yeah.
a Jesus who and which in
Matthew
America
25, yeah.
means black people.
Yeah.
All right, that were so overtly oppressed as a group of people, and done so by fellow Christians.
Yeah.
So that's the idea of the title, Black Jesus. So there's not a concentration in the book about, hey, Jesus is black. Everyone needs to accept that. Although, many of us would argue for a black Jesus. But maybe we'll do that in another episode. We do have some books in our lineup called like The Color of Christ, for instance, and some other places. We might jump into that.
Yeah, but I think to that point, it's a powerful statement, because Matthew 25, Christ says, when he returns the sheep and the goats,
Yes.
and the sheep will enter into the joy that he's prepared for them, and it's based upon how they treated others. And Christ says, whatever you have done to the least of these, my brethren and sisters, you have done them unto me.
Right.
So Bonhoeffer,
There you go.
I like it. The concept is, I don't see Christ or serving Christ or being Christian in how I treat those who are superior, those who are in positions of power and privilege. I am truly a Christian. I'm following the way of Christ when I'm able to not only serve and minister, but I identify with those who are the marginalized, the left behind, and the least of these. So that is.
And I'm glad you bring that up, and I know we're getting ready to close
Yeah,
this
we're
segment.
short of that, yeah.
So here's the thing is where did Bonhoeffer develop that kind of thinking? Reggie Williams argues that he gets it from the preaching of Adam Clayton Powell Sr. During Bonhoeffer's time there, he preached a sermon among many other sermons. He preached a sermon called "The Hungry God" and "The Naked God," and so
Wow.
kind of self-explanatory.
Yes.
When you look out and you see hungry people, you see naked people,
Wow.
you're seeing God.
Yeah.
How do you respond? How do you respond to them? That's how you respond to God.
Wow. Well, thank you so much,
Yes.
Pastor Mac, for sharing that with us. The book, Bonhoeffer's Black Jesus, Harlem Renaissance Theology, and an ethic of resistance. Powerful. Once again, we just thank you all. Hey, God bless you all. Thanks, Doc.
My pleasure.